Recording's on. All right. So welcome everyone to our AI in Action at Westchester University series. My name is Dr. Tom Pantasis. I'm an instructional designer with the Teaching and Learning Center. And I want to thank you for being with us today, either in person or virtually after the fact. Um, we appreciate you taking some time to learn more about AI in educational contexts. And I want to thank today's presenter, Dr. Lisa Calvano. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to her for her presentation.
Thanks for the great introduction, Tom, and thank you to you and Naomi for inviting me here to do this today. I'm going to call this Confessions of a Reluctant AI User. And so what I want to do today is just share with y'all a little bit of my AI journey and how that's evolved from fall semester. So I want to share, just share a photo of, for a second. All right. So we use these photos in a meeting with graduate coordinators to say, to ask you to reflect on and think about when you think about your comfort level with AI, which of these photos is you? So are you the person with your head in the sand, hoping that this is all going to go away? Are you the person jumping for joy that this is the most wonderful thing ever? Or are you like Eeyore in the corner wishing that AI was never invented?
I'm definitely a joy person.
You're a joy person, right? And I have a couple of mentors that are joy people. But what I can say is at the start of fall semester, I was the head in the sand person, just pretending it would go away. And I think now I'm somewhere in between these two. And that's what I want to share today on my journey from head in the sand to somewhere in between enthusiastic user and downbeat user. So I would say I am a cautious and occasional AI user for certain circumstances, but I've found it to be really helpful in those circumstances. So I have two guides that have helped introduce me to AI, and I want to give them a shout out here today, just in case they engage with this. Matthew Kruger-Ross, who's the president of Grad Council, and Marcy Major, who's the faculty associate to the grad dean, have introduced me to AI tools and gave me examples on how to use them or situations in which to use them. So I'm grateful to them because they helped me get my head out of the sand. So how do I use AI? I would say there are three times that I use it and I've found it to be useful. Number one is as an ideation tool. Number two is an intermediate step in the writing process. And number three, basically like a thesaurus. So when I use AI as an ideation tool, I may use it to brainstorm when I get stuck. And this would be, the same way I would use it if I was talking to a colleague. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. So I might be thinking about, actually, somebody said to me today when I said I was doing this, they said, oh, you should have used it to write your presentation today, right? I would never do that, but say I was stuck for how to present something. I might ask that to AI just as an idea and to get the creative juices flowing, right? So that's one example. The second example, which is where I tend to use it the most, is as an intermediate step in writing. So we have a really good example of this that happened just a couple weeks ago. Marcy Major and I were trying to write a charge for a committee. And I drafted something really quickly. I really like to write, right? And I take really pride in word usage and sentence formation. So I drafted something quickly. And I said to Marcy, can you clean this up to make it more professional? So she put it through AI. And what came back was really interesting for two reasons. We were talking about the retention and persistence of graduate students. But I think Marcy didn't say that when she put the prompt in AI. So it came back with a lot of undergraduate specific data,
Mm.
which wasn't useful to us at all. However, what was useful was that it got me thinking about other things that should be included in the charge that we had previously created as part of a retention and persistence plan for graduate students. So all of a sudden, it made me think, wow, we should include these other things. And I thought, that was a really good use because then we were able to rewrite the charge, incorporating in some things we had already written previously that made the case richer.
So it was like an extension. It
Yes,
took you a little bit further.
right. That's a great, Tom, that's a great way to think about it. We brought in AI in the middle, and then it launched us to think about other things. So I would do that again. And then the other time I've used it is as a thesaurus. I want a better word for something, or I want to soften a sentence, right? I tend to be a pretty blunt writer. Um, and so sometimes I might put something through AI that says, say this in a less harsh way, right? So I found it helpful there. And that's really all I've used it, but it's helped me gotten my head out of the sand to engage with it a little bit more. One thing I found is some cautions around the use of it. And again, this may have been the tools I've used. I've only in these instances used Chat GPT.
Okay.
Marcy and Matthew have introduced me to other tools which I haven't used, but for these purposes, I've used Chat GPT. The caution is it doesn't do nuance really well.
Mm.
Um, Nor does it really understand context. And that's why I call it an intermediate step, or as Tom said, kind of the bridge to take you to the next step. We had done a workshop for the graduate school staff on AI that Matthew helped facilitate because the staff was interested in learning more. This was back in the fall. And one of the first examples we put in, I'm a qualitative researcher, we put in a prompt in ChatGPT about qualitative methodology. And it was able to list out different, participant observation, interviews, etc. But there wasn't a lot of nuance in there or context for how to use these things, the challenges with using these kind of methods. So it was really good at putting out a list. So that's why I say there's some caution um, in how to use it. So I guess, the bottom line for me is I'm not an avid or enthusiastic user, but I see the utility in certain situations and I'm open to learning more about how to use it, not as a replacement, but as an enhancement.
Mm. So you talked about two folks in particular who were kind of instrumental in helping to bring you along. And was there anything in particular that they were doing that did kind of help shift you a little bit that others could perhaps do to help? Because there's a wide range of perspectives on AI. Um, and given its ubiquity at this point, I don't think we can ignore it as an institution. And so how do we help folks get a little bit more comfortable is really where I'm going since you've had that experience. What was useful in that? Are you getting where I'm going with this question?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. So two things. One is that, Matthew has introduced me to various tools. When he learns a new tool, he shares it with me. So
Okay.
we have weekly meetings. And in those meetings, when he's gone to a lot of trainings on AI, and so he shares with me the tools uh that he learns. So getting to see that, and also the training he did in the graduate school was really helpful. I mean, I didn't know how to use it, so just having somebody to be your guide on how to use it, right? This is where this is the web link, what takes, this is this is a prompt you put in. So
Hmm.
having a guide is helpful. With Marcy, it's helpful because she might suggest, oh, this might be a time to, if we're stuck on something, this might be a time to, do the brainstorming in AI. So I think
And I,
it's a combination of active sharing and training, and then
mhm.
also suggesting places where we might call it in as a tool.
It's interesting your example of that, like helping you along when you get stuck. Because one of the things that I've seen, like you get writer's block, you can ask it for 30 different sentence endings just as a
Really?
way to like get, oh yeah, you can be like, I have this sentence I've gotten to here. Give me 30 different endings. And it'll give you 30 different endings. And so you have that opportunity to be like, look at all these variations that, and then pick something and keep going. But then also the like extension piece. There was a time where a faculty member was asking me for examples for a particular type of teaching style. And I'd come up with a list of 12 or 13, but I was like, let me see how AI would respond to this. And I put it in, and it gave me two more that I had just forgotten
Mm.
about, right? I already remembered 12. That's a lot. There were two more. So it was that like little extra extension. And I heard your example about that, like just kind of rethinking your prompt just a little bit more sounded very familiar to me in that way. And I do think that's a value of like, we've done the work. Let me see if there's like a little bit more I can add on, or let me see if it'll shift our thinking just a little bit differently.
And I like that example. So here's another, so you've now been a guide for me by
Hmm.
sharing that example, right? Because I wouldn't naturally think of, because I said to you, I love to write and take pride in my writing. I won't let AI write for me.
Hmm.
That's like kind of a line in the sand for me.
Yeah.
Um, but I love this idea about taking something for, we've done the hard work of finding 15 of something. Is there
Hmm.
anything we missed?
Yeah. And like there was a whole bunch of other stuff in their list that wasn't good. I still had to bring my expertise to that to go, oh yeah, these two here, these are good examples I should put in as well. Right. Um, Reminded me of something else. What was it? Oh, I just thought I put my hand up. Isn't that funny? I was like, why did my screen switch? Um, that's Zoom for you right there.
Yeah.
It's writing related.
Hmm.
The tone. I can relate to your tone comments as well. There have been a couple instances where it's like, okay, it's the end of the day, I'm tired. Is there a way for this to make sure it sounds right before I click send and get it out the door? Um, Another prompt I've seen in terms of helping, like from a professional standpoint, is if you have Copilot enabled in Outlook, which is not something widely available here at Westchester yet, you can ask it to like look through my inbox. Is there anything I haven't responded to yet that I need to before the week is over? Um, so from that's an efficiency gain type example that comes out.
So just I actually have a question for you about that, because one thing we've talked a lot in the grad school because of privacy concerns, right, about what we feed into AI.
Hmm.
So is there a privacy concern with having this thing look through my inbox, right?
So it depends on what tool you're using. The example I just gave with Microsoft, I actually was at Microsoft and they explained how their Copilot setup works. And when we have a license with them, as long as we're using the work internal version, it's staying inside of our stuff. It's not sending our data externally out. Microsoft gets a copy of ChatGPT that they set up and have a way to run through their tools. So
Oh,
that version protects the data because it's already inside the box, so to
got
speak.
it.
Um, but there's a different version that Microsoft has that goes out to the web that wouldn't protect the data in the same way. So like that's a very sneaky distinction that unless you've had that explanation, you don't know. And ChatGPT, forget about it. Like that that data is going off to them anytime you put stuff in there. So that's why I'm very like, do not put student data in these tools.
Right. I mean,
Um,
we've done very clear training about that. And that's why I'm very cautious to you. I will never use it for something very specific. It's
yeah,
just like anything that's identifiable, I would not put in there.
yeah. So another kind of like efficiency gain. We're getting ready to do a little conference, and I have these write-ups from people about their presentations, but they're like 2 paragraphs, and I need 2 sentences. So I can put that in AI and say, give me 2 sentences about this. And the write-ups are pretty good. And I don't have to take the time to think through how would I bring this down to 2 sentences. So
Right.
that kind of summation work for that type of example, I'm perfectly comfortable handing
Hmm.
that off because all of that's going to be publicly available. Um, could I do that work? Yes. It would take me 5 times as long to do it. Whereas I can say, do it, read it. Yep, that sounds like it's got the gist. We're good to go.
I'm
So,
not there yet, so I need to be brought along a little bit more before, yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is I still have a lot of reservations
hmm
about its use and, you know, the usual things that people are reserved about, but I do use it
yeah.
occasionally and in
Th-
specific. Uh,
There's a post I saw on social media, and the general gist was like, I love how this gives me accurate information about subjects I don't know about, but is wrong about the subject I do know about 40% of the time. Not going to think about that anymore. And it's true, it goes to your nuance comment from earlier, right? That um, it doesn't always get the context right. It doesn't always get the disciplinary expertise 100% right. So,
and that actually causes more work, right?
yes, yes.
That's an efficiency loss.
hmm
It's a shortcut, but a loss.
I was listening to some speakers talk about using it for rubric building and how they had to keep reprompting and adjusting and finally got the rubric that they wanted 15 minutes later. And I said, couldn't you have just written that rubric in 5 minutes? And they were like, oh, yeah, I guess I could have. I was like, that's not efficient.
Right.
So,
All right.
okay.
That's
Well,
it.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your journey and we really appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.
Thank you.